I'm Connor Old, and this is Old's Oscar Countdown. And today we're going to be looking at the best documentary feature category. Now, this may not be the most exciting category to a lot of people, but the documentary feature category is always an interesting category for me because a lot of the times there's never really a set documentary that's going to win. It's almost always sort of open, or one or two that you can decide between. And that always makes it an interesting race for an Oscar buff like me. But also, this is the first episode I've recorded since a couple of big things have come out. Really, this is the one big thing that came out early. So my last video I did record knowing the Golden Globe nominations. I know you guys were sort of wondering, hey Connor, maybe how does that fit in? I was supposed to do a nominations predictions video. The update on that is that I actually did a nominations predictions video, and I was going to do a reaction to those nominations. But then I realized that this is really more of an Oscar channel, and if I'm going to do some more Oscar things in the future, it will be for the DGAs and the WGAs, and of course the nominations I'm going to look at. But the Golden Globes, in case you're new to this sort of Oscar series, don't matter a lot. But before I go into sort of the Golden Globes, right, I'm Connor Old, and what I do every single week is I break down a new Oscar category, and I look at the different categories, and I look at what I think makes them great and what I think is going to get nominated. So I have my 5 picks, and then I have a couple possibles, and then eventually I'm going to do my final updated list. But first, let me just get into that Golden Globes thing, just to update you guys. So Golden Globes thing, just because if you don't know, it doesn't really affect the Oscars that much. It's a group of about 75 people called the Hollywood Foreign Press. These aren't even critics. These are sort of like the press junket people. It's not even almost like reporters. They're not even critics that sort of watch a lot of movies and can sort of give us a telltale sign of Oscars. The Oscars are about 3,000 people across the world in industries. It's this big thing, really. And the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, I don't know why it's so big. I don't know why the Golden Globes are this big idea. You can really buy a lot of awards. That's why we saw things like All the Money in the World get in there, even though no one's seen it. Same thing with The Greatest Showman. Just some interesting things to point out. And then, Get Out was sort of campaigning to be a comedy because I think it could win in comedy. Just some interesting things I think I wanted to point out there. But so that's why I didn't really cover the Golden Globes. But last episode I did not know the SAG nominations. Now I do. I think those are a definite indicator for the Oscars. So for my Connor's Corner this week, I'm going to be looking at some of the rising and falling, but I'm going to do a SAG sort of update video. So Rising, I think 3 billboards for sure. Did very well at Golden Globes and at SAGs. Like Golden Globes even got in for something like director for Martin McDonagh, which I did not expect. And then even if you look at SAGs, you got 2 supporting actor nominations for Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson. Of course, you get Frances McDormand. And all that good stuff. So I think right now, whoever wins the SAG very well could win the Oscar. And the way it's shaping out right now, I'm thinking Laurie Metcalf with supporting actress, Willem Dafoe for supporting actor. But the way 3 billboards is doing, I mean, it could be a situation where Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson split the votes. So it may not be a good indicator, but you don't know. And then, of course, it got in for Best Ensemble as well, which a couple others got shut out at. But also, Lady Bird did very well. It got in for Ensemble. I didn't get in for I did get in for director at the Globes, right? No, it didn't. No, she got shut out the Globes. That's right. I didn't predict her for the Globes, but Lady Bird got in for Ensemble, which was the big one, and also got in for Laurie Metcalf and Saoirse Ronan. So right now, actually, I'm thinking Lady Bird is that number 2 consensus choice, the choice that everyone really likes. Now that's sort of the critics circle, but is that the Oscar circle? We don't know yet, but I think they really appreciate Lady Bird and they really like Lady Bird, and that's why right now Lady Bird I think is going to win the Oscar. It's my number 1 front right now with 3 billboards at number 2. And these SAG, I think there's an interesting stat with SAG ensembles, which is the best. If you don't get in for ensemble, a movie that. So the Best Picture winner always gets in for Best Ensemble at the SAGs, and the last one that won the Best Picture that didn't get in for Ensemble was Braveheart in '95. La La Land last year, we thought, it didn't get in for Ensemble, but there's always a rule breaker to everything. La La Land's this great thing, it's got most nominations ever, all this stuff, right? And it doesn't win. So you have to realize that SAG acting branch is a huge branch, and if they don't like it to pick in that ensemble, that's a huge thing. So we're seeing things like a couple falling now. So Call Me By Your Name didn't get in for Ensemble, only got in for Chalamet, didn't even get in for Armie Hammer or Michael Stuhlbarg. And if that's any place to reward that movie, the SAGs are the place. So Call Me By Your Name really slips down my rankings. I think was it The Shape of Water didn't get it for ensemble, but it did get in for Sally Hawkins and Richard Jenkins, but no Octavia Spencer. So that's an interesting thing. I think Shape of Water could be almost out of the race. This is a huge thing, this ensemble thing. And then the post got completely shut out. Now there are some whisperings that people didn't see it. This is very much a SAG movie. Meryl Streep didn't get in, Tom Hanks didn't get in for ensemble. So maybe that could be sort of a telltale sign. But I still think there's a possibility to sort of have that late surge in that sense, if it does really start just doing really well at the box office throughout that sort of have an American Sniper nominations run. But I don't think it could win, and this could very well also bring Steven Spielberg down the ranks for best director. Who knows? Okay, so that's just my quick Connor's Corner, what's rising, what's falling, and let's move into my first pick, which is Faces, Places, JR and Agnes Varda. Now, I didn't know too much about these guys. JR is an artist, and Agnes Varda is a movie director, and she's a very well-respected movie director. The first time I heard her was when she got the honorary award, I think a couple of years ago or last year at the Oscars. So she's already got an honorary award for this, so they really like her. So now she's coming out with a documentary. Maybe this is finally the chance to reward her for some of her work. So people have heard her name, they definitely like her. This is sort of an unusual couple sort of road film where they take people they see on the street and they paint their faces on a wall. Sort of a cute, like I said, unusual couple thing. It also has, from what I've heard, a very sort of good spirit to it. It's not mean spirit, it's a very sort of fun documentary. And so many documentaries, especially on this list, are very much negative, all serious, the world's going to end, it's very depressing, right? And that can work, but this one is definitely the standout in that, and that's why I put it in the #1 slot, because it's doing very well critically. They like Agnes Varda, and it's different than the other ones in the sense that it's very sort of charming in that sense and sort of uplifting, which some of the other documentaries, really most of them aren't, right? So that's just an interesting thing to point out. I think Faces, Places can do very well at the Oscars. My next pick is going to Jane for Brett Morgan. Now, Brett Morgan is pretty well respected in the documentary film community. He did something like Kurt Cobain's Montage of Heck. He's done a couple of previous documentaries before. He's been nominated once before in 1999 for unfortunately, I don't have it here. But I think that's one reason why I'm not sure if he's going to get in for sure. There's a couple things holding this back, just because he's only been nominated once, even though he's sort of a well-respected documentarian. This is a National Geographic picture, so people may associate it with a boring nature documentary and totally dismiss it outright, but I've heard really incredible things about this, and it's about Jane Goodall, who's here, and using a bunch of archival footage. And Jane Goodall is known for her advancements in with chimpanzees and working with them, and it's very much we bring up this sort of themes, or there's a theme for the Oscars. We've had Oscars so white before, we had Trump before. Trump is still sort of a thing this year, but this is definitely a year of sexual harassment plaguing Hollywood. So it's really empowering women. So really this is a documentary that's perfect for that, and perfect timing, because it's about Jane Goodall, who's this incredibly smart scientist and working with the chimpanzees, but a lot of her research was discredited because she was a woman. And then the archival footage that they created, they have almost 100 hours of this archival footage, was done by her lover. So it's not only about her trying to go against the system, but then also there's a romantic relationship into it, and then the lives of Jane herself. So I think this is going to be a really interesting documentary, even though it does have a couple holdbacks, like he's only been nominated once, National Geographic picture. I think it's just going to be an incredible documentary, because he's well respected in the documentary world, that I think he'll eventually get in. So my next pick is Strong Island, Yance Ford. So this is a true crime documentary, but it's different than other true crime documentaries, because Yance Ford, the director, is looking at the murder trials of his brother. So that's an interesting sort of unique take on the true crime genre, which is why I think it's going to get in. Not a lot of true crime genres get in. Maybe they did back in the old way with Thin Blue Line and stuff like that, but not more recently, because they've been sort of flooded. I mean, they've even been parodied in American Vandal. But this is different because it has the unique personal touch. Documentarians, a lot of times when they're talking to their people, whoever they're looking at and interviewing, they have to gain months just to trust them and allow them to get the information they need. But this one, he's just interviewing his mom, he's interviewing his family. So you already have that one-to-one, he knows if his mom's telling the truth, he knows her personal feelings, he knows how to work that documentary, he knows what to get out of her. So it delivers this interesting, very unique sort of personal thing that's unable to do in any other true crime documentary. So it has that personal aspect to it, but it also is an engaging true crime documentary. This one I put up pretty high because I think that it could do well because it's this very unique sort of premise, but people are thinking could get out, who knows. Right now I have Strong Island in there because of that sort of unique, raw, personal feeling that you can get from this sort of documentary. I think if people watch this, it can really blow people away. My next pick is City of Ghosts, Matthew Heineman. This is the director of Cartel Land, one of my favorite documentaries that year. Not my favorite, but really up there. That was a great year for documentaries because you also had Winter on Fire, the Ukraine documentary by Netflix. This is done by A&E and Amazon, I believe. So just right off the bat, he has been nominated before in his last movie, Cartel Land, a movie they really enjoyed. So I think he's going to get in again for City of Ghosts. The one maybe caveat is it's a movie about Syrian rebels fighting against ISIS. Now, is Syria as big as a topic as it always is? Who knows, right? We don't know. Maybe it's, Syria's, and say it in a blunt term, say, Syrian refugees, that was last year's term. We don't care about that. We wore the white helmets, we're good, right? So maybe have that, but I think Matthew Heineman, from what I've seen from the trailers, what he did from Cartel Land I can speak of, just the visceralness, like in Cartel Land, you could tell that you were almost there, like it was like insane what shots he was getting, who he was talking to. They didn't care, they just wanted to spread the word, and he was talking to like these big guys. I mean, the opening scene was guys cooking meth in the background and a guy with a mask on and an AK-47, it was insane. So really being with these people and growing these group of characters in a sense, in this small group of rebels, and as they're trying to fight against ISIS, and capturing that visceral setting, I think he's a great job at the atmosphere filmmaking and that capturing that setting very well. I think if he's able to do that, it will transcend the sort of the Syrian refugee last year thing and really become more of a prevalent issue, which is sort of like this Islamic nationalism that's causing so many wars in the Middle East, and so the fight against that, and sort of then you talk about foreign intervention. There's really interesting points that he can bring up, and I think I haven't seen the documentary, but if he does a good job, that will come up for sure. My final pick is Icarus by Brian Fogel. Now, this is an interesting thing because it's like a Michael Morrison here, where Brian Fogel is in the documentary. I'm not going to spoil this, but what I will say is that the documentary starts off one way and goes into a totally different area. That's what they always say about great documentaries, is that if you have an end point to your documentary, it's not a good documentary. You have a starting point, and then you let the story take you where it wants to take you. And this is an incredible example from this. Also, it's interesting to point out that this is the only Netflix movie that made the documentary shortlist. So the shortlist was about 15 nominees, and then they can choose from there, right? Instead of saying all documentaries would be way too broad. So this is the only Netflix movie that made the shortlist. And the Netflix movies, they've made this category, they've been nominated in this category for 5 years straight. Sometimes 2 years, with What Happens to Miss Simone, Winter on Fire, Ukraine. Last year he had 13th, right? So we're seeing Netflix documentaries, they really respect it in the documentary sort of genre. And I think this is my favorite documentary of the year, I think, because it's an incredible sports documentary that takes an interesting turn. It's such a great mix of sort of genres, and he just totally allows himself to go with the story and does a lot of risk taking in that sense. And it even has sort of it's mostly about like sports doping and trying to do steroids and stuff like that. And the Russians were recently knocked out of the Olympics because of this thing, right? So so it has a prevalent news topic to it, right? So if it's on Netflix right now, I highly recommend you to watch it. It's really good. So now going to my possibles. It's a very strong possible. This is Last Men in Aleppo by these guys. I don't want to mispronounce their names, but they did win the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance for a documentary feature. So that's an interesting thing for there. So you have a Danish filmmaker and I believe a Syrian filmmaker, and they look at the people in Aleppo of Syria. I hope I'm getting that right. I think I am. But people are sort of setting this to the white helmet sort of scenario, which did win last year. So this has almost like feeling like a continuation of that story, because it does feature a lot of the white helmets in sort of a more elongated documentary. But it really sort of takes this incredible Danish filmmaker who maybe doesn't know too much about the actual the film and the area, and then takes another filmmaker who does, and their collaboration really works well, and people are really predicting this to get in. I haven't heard that much sort of buzz in terms of critically. Maybe it gets in, but I think having 2 Syrian movies in there maybe is a little bit too overcrowded with that, so I took Last Minute of Aleppo out. And then my final pick, I went with an Inconvenient Sequel, Al Gore, or Bonnie Cohen and John Schenk. Now this is interesting because if you remember the first movie, Inconvenient Truth, they did huge numbers at the box office. Al Gore was known for that. This is his new thing, aside from inventing the internet. And it was his new thing, and it made a lot of money at the box office and won the Oscar by a landslide. This one did not make that much money at the box office. It's not as critically well reviewed, and is now, it's an odd choice, but I think because it's brand recognition. People heard of Inconvenient Truth. They know about this. So if there's a sequel to that, they'll know, like, wow. And if people really believe in climate change and maybe an anti-Trump vote in that sense, they could vote for this movie to get in. I just don't think it's good enough to get in. But maybe, who knows? I just don't think that they like it enough. I don't think it's good enough to get in, but it has that brand recognition. I also have to point out that a lot of people know that the Inconvenient Truth, the first one, had a lot of errors where it predicted in 10 years this is going to happen. Well, 10 years have passed and not even remotely close to that has happened. So maybe a lot of his predictions were off base the first time. So now this one, it's hard to believe, at least for me. I was like, I don't know, buddy, you were wrong a lot of the times last time. Should I trust you this time? There's that lack of distrust because he's got some of these predictions wrong already. So maybe that's why it couldn't get in, who knows. But anyways, guys, I'm Connor Rold. Make sure to like the video, comment below. Let me know some of your documentary picks. Do you want me to do maybe for the DGAs or WGAs or PGAs, maybe their own separate video if you like that, or just sort of the top of the show sort of update? I like the top of the show update, keep things a little more structured, a little more segmentation. I hope you guys have a great Christmas. Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal, Home Alone 2, best Christmas movie. Maybe we'll talk about that a little later when I come back, maybe with a Masters of Controlled Chaos series after the Oscars happen, or maybe I start with a new series. You can tell me that in the comments down below too. Anyways, guys, until next time, stay tuned.